welcome to Half the Battle. It's main character May again, and I have to admit I had some problems with picking this year's character.
You see, last year was supposed to be Scarlet, but due to medical issues, I was unable to work for all of May. It was only due to HCC 788 stepping in like a hero that we got the Scarlet review at all.
So the way I do main character May is I alternate between good guys and bad guys.
Last year was a good guy, so this year it should be a bad guy. But since I didn't do the review myself last year, shouldn't it be another good guy?
It was difficult. Good guy, bad guy. But then I thought,
¿Por qué no los dos?
And that's why you're getting Storm Shadow this year, who was both a bad and a good guy.
you're welcome.
And today, we're taking a look at the classic action figures, starting of course with version 1. So meet Storm Shadow. This figure was released in 1984 with all original body parts. What's remarkable is that it was a really popular figure. It wasn't just sold in 84 and 85, but also in 86. That's 3 years, while most other figures only ever got a 2-year run. Even Duke, released the same year, was only sold carded in 84 and 85. Same with Snake Eyes version 2, though that was 85 and 86.
I can't think of any other figure that was available for 3 straight years.
As an aside, this figure was also really popular in Belgium, as it wasn't just released carded, but was also made available through mail order. That means there were a lot, and I mean a lot, of Storm Shadows at flea markets during the late 90s and early 2000s. Something I took full advantage of back then.
But let's talk about the toy itself.
So what can I really say here? I mean, yeah, it's just a really excellent figure. He's a great looking ninja, which is no doubt why the toy was so popular. He's got a simple but superb color scheme of white with some black. Detailing is pretty nice. There's weapons on the chest and the wristbands look really good.
The only bits of criticism I have mostly to do with the way the toy ages.
Since it's from 84, the head only moves left and right. Both the black parts and the Cobra logo can easily get scratch damage. The worst thing is, as many of you will know, Storm Shadow figures are extremely prone to yellowing, where the white parts get discolored over time. All that does make finding a pristine one a little difficult and expensive.
For accessories, he had quite the bundle.
There's a long sword and a short one, a frankly unimpressive looking bow, and a pair of nunchucks. And all of these fit into a really unique and cool looking backpack. All these things really add to the character of the toy. I really can't say much more about this figure. The only words that do it justice are terms like great, excellent, superb.
So let's move on.
And meet Storm Shadow version 2. This figure was released in 1988 with all original body parts, and is both an update and reinvention of the character. He's no longer with Cobra and has become a Joe. He's still white overall, but with dark grey highlights now, and a sort of camo pattern that isn't bad, but I'm not sure the figure needed that. Instead of molded on weapons, he now has a long rope on his torso. The best part of the detailing is the Arashikage tattoo on the right arm, something that was invented for the comic and got incorporated in this figure. I'm almost amazed they made an entirely new sculpt instead of just repainting version 1 and remove the Cobra logo.
For once, I'll give Hasbro credit on this one.
The bad part about version 2 is the same as the first one. It too is prone to yellowing, which can make the toy a bit ugly. For accessories, he still has a sword and a bow that's a lot bigger and better looking than the first one. He also has a claw that attaches to his wrist and a backpack that can hold the sword. I don't really like the red here, it really clashes with the figure. Overall though, yeah, it's still a pretty damn great toy.
Next, it's time for Ninja Force.
So meet Storm Shadow version 3. This figure was released in 1992 with all original body parts. And they sure went in a different direction here. The black and white are almost inverted compared to the original, and for some reason they went with a snow motif? I don't really get why they went for an Arctic look here. I mean, it's not bad looking, and the gold detailing makes him look quite regal, like this is the ninja equivalent of a dress uniform.
Being from the Ninja Force subline meant that he has real ninja action.
In this case called Screaming Whirlwind. This means his arms move up and down. Move one and the other moves too. Though this looks less like a ninja move to me and more like that thing that bushwhackers did. The gimmick also makes it that there's no way to separate the torso if you need to repair the figure, since there's no screw in the back. For accessories, he had a sword and sickle, both white and unremarkable. And these are also the fewest accessories any Storm Shadow from the original line came with. Kinda disappointing. Overall, it's a pretty neat figure, but kinda weird.
And speaking of weird,
meet Storm Shadow version 4. This figure was released in 1994 with no original body parts, as it's a straight reuse of the Ninja Force one, but is now part of the Shadow Ninjas. Meaning he's translucent and changes color when you put him in hot or cold water. And one of those colors is bluish, and his generic weapons are translucent blue.
Hey, wait a minute.
A blue-colored ninja with an ice theme. And this came out in 94. Mortal Kombat came out in 92. Yeah.
I see what you did there, Hasbro.
This is the most obvious Sub-Zero ripoff since Glacier from WCW. Yeah, this is definitely the worst Storm Shadow of the original line.
That's a bit of a sour note to end on, so guess what? We're not gonna do that.
I was just gonna look at the figures from the original G.I.Joe line today.
But I'll do you one better and take a look at one more.
So meet Storm Shadow version 5. This figure was released in 1997 with no original body parts. It's a repaint of version 1 with the same accessories. And like I mentioned in the tier list video, he looks like a blending of the styles of the first 3 figures. First version's costume, second version's grey highlights, and third version's snow pattern. And this blending works pretty good. It's another fine figure and a highlight of the troubled 97 line.
To wrap things up, let me show you where all the figures ended up on the tier lists.
Version 1 was in the best tier, so was version 2. 3 was in the good but weird tier, while the Shadow Ninja went in the worst tier, obviously, and the 97 one got into the good tier. And those were the classic toys, mostly good to great, with one glaring exception.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle, and welcome back to Main Character May,
where we take a look at Storm Shadow all month long. Last time, we took a look at the figures from the original line, in 1997, so today we'll be talking about a selection of toys from the more modern lines. Now, there were no toys in 1999, making it the first year since 1982 that saw no new G.I.Joe products on the toy shelves. Yeah, even 95 and 96 had Sergeant Savage and G.I. Joe Extreme. Not that that's something to be really proud of.
So, for the first new Storm Shadow, we have to go back. All the way back to the future, to the year 2000!
In the year 2000! So meet Storm Shadow version 5. This figure was released in the year 2000 with no original body parts. It's a repaint of the Ninja Force figure in more traditional stormy colors, though the mask is still black. One crucial difference with the Ninja Force version is that they took out the real ninja action, so it's just a regular G.I. Joe figure now, though it still does not have a screw in the back.
So if you need to repair it, that's still gonna be a pain in the dick.
He was part of the Special Collector's Edition toy line and was exclusively available in a 2-pack with snake eyes. It's a pretty neat looking figure, though making his hands flesh colored looks a bit weird, since you can still see the glove molding on them. For accessories, he just has 2 swords, making his head as anemic and unimpressive as the Ninja Force one. I don't really get why they went with this mold, since the original was still available.
Maybe they wanted to shake things up a bit?
Still, the figure's not bad. The Special Collector's Edition line continued in 2001, but saw no new Storm Shadow figure.
The year after that, though?
Well, that saw the huge G.I. Joe vs. Cobra relaunch toy line, and oh boy did Stormy get his due. 2002 saw no less than 4 different figures of the character, though I only have one and I don't really like any of them. Version 7 is the first new body mold for the character since the Ninja Force figure from 1992. So yeah, it took a full decade for him to get a brand new figure. And they tried reinventing him again, much like in 1992. This time he's white with red highlights, which I don't think really works. This mold was used 2 more times in 2002 alone, and I have version 8, the grey and dark red version.
And here's where I have to address the elephant in the room.
You see, for the Joe vs. Cobra relaunch, they dropped the O-ring construction, meaning they lost some of the leg articulation. Fans weren't too happy about that, and the figures looked weird, especially because they made the torsos bigger. If there's one thing positive I can say about these figures, is that the Crossed Sword Sheath's backpack looks really cool.
Now, that's not to say there weren't O-ring figures in 2002.
There were plenty in fact, and even some of the new molds used them, but most were repaints using molds from the original line. One such was Storm Shadow version 9, only available in a box set sold at BJ's Wholesale Club and Fred Meyer, who once again used a Ninja Force mold and was red. In fact, all the Cobras in the set were red for some reason.
I don't know why. I mean, it's not like they were making him a red ninja or anything.
Moving on, in 2004, Storm Shadow would get a whopping 6 figures released. One of them was this one from the Valor vs. Venom toy line that still didn't have an O-ring, even though Hasbro had switched back to using that type of body construction in 2003.
I guess because a lot of fans yelled at them.
The reason this figure was different is because for him they brought back the Ninja Force gimmick, as his torso and right arm spring back when moving them. This mold was modified to remove the gimmick, making him a regular O-ring figure for 2 other releases in 2004, and a few more beyond. The last thing I'll say about him is that having his mask be covered by the Cobra symbol looks very goofy. The other notable 2004 figure was part of a Toys R Us exclusive Ninja Cobra Strike Team, and it used a 1998 mold, but repainted in green with camouflage. It's weird because I associate that mold with him being a good guy, and the same goes for green camouflage.
2005 saw the release of what is probably my favorite Storm Shadow figure.
Version 19, who uses version 1's body, but with 1991 Dusty's arms. He looks really great and isn't as fragile as the original. The only downside is that his only accessories were a sword and a sheath backpack. He should have gotten more. He was only available as part of a comic book 3-pack. 2005 also saw, for the first time, the release of an unmasked Storm Shadow. This figure used the modified body of that 2004 one with a new head sculpt, and he came with a removable mask. What's special here is that this was a mail-in figure, something not totally unprecedented for Hasbro to do in the 2000s, but quite rare to see nevertheless. It's a perfectly fine figure, but only remarkable because he's unmasked and was a mail-in.
The unmaskings continued in 2006.
When another comic book 3-pack was released showing what Snake Eyes, Stalker and Storm Shadow looked like in their Vietnam days. Though this figure isn't technically a Storm Shadow, as he's called Tommy Arashikage, his real name. The head is new, but most of the body is that of Roadblock version 1. I don't have it, so I can't really comment, but it looks okay. 2007 saw the dawn of the new body construction figures, and Storm Shadow is fine for what he is. It's a good homage to the original, and if you like this new type of body, you'll like this figure. The only bad thing is that his backpack strap tends to cover up the Cobra logo. This Storm Shadow was part of the Cobra Battle Pack that contained 4 other figures. The mold was reused several times for more Storm Shadow figures, including this black version from 2008, which I didn't even remember was a Storm Shadow until looking things up on yojo.com for this video.
And the last figures I have for you are the ones from the movie.
There's the 2009 Rise of Cobra figure, which is a pretty damn good representation of what he looked like in the movie. I always thought the coat makes him look more businesslike. There was also an unmasked version, which you'd think would have just been the same figure with a new head. But no, if you look closely, most of the body parts are in fact different, though not all of them. Still, I'm amazed Hasbro went through the costs for this one. The last figure I own is from the Pursuit of Cobra line, where frankly, he looks like a homeless guy. Hobo with a katana, if you will.
Now, there were of course many more Storm Shadow figures than the ones I've shown you.
By the time Yo-Joe stopped updating, there were freaking 50 of them out there, but I by no means have them all. Quite frankly, I was getting a bit sick of there being so damn many Stormies. To say nothing of Snake Eyes.
I may be a completionist, but that only applies to the original line.
Overall, with the exception of the Shadow Ninja from Part 1, Storm Shadow never had a really bad figure made of him, though the 2002 non-O-ring versions weren't great. But still, I'd say he had an amazing run. Next time we'll get into the meat and potatoes of main character May,
as we'll be looking at the character, starting with the file card. Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
And welcome back to Main Character May, where we're still talking about Storm Shadow.
And today we're going to be talking about the character. Yeah, we'll get to the file card. But first, let's talk about the man who wrote them and the comics.
Larry Hama, the creative father of G.I. Joe, loves two things: military stories and ninjas. And boy, must it have seemed to him that all his Christmases came at once when Hasbro showed him the prototype or concept art of what would become the Storm Shadow figure.
So, let's see what he wrote for the first file card.
Cobra Ninja, codename Storm Shadow. Primary specialty, assassin. Secondary specialty, intelligence. Birthplace, classified.
What's interesting here is what isn't on the card.
There's no file name, not even file name unknown or file name classified. Like Larry didn't even want to go there yet. His birthplace is classified, and you'd be forgiven for thinking, oh, well, that's easy, it's Japan, right? But we'll later learn he's a Japanese American from,
Okay, that's kinda complicated.
The main text says he's from a family that's 30 generations of assassins.
Okay, let's get this one out of the way.
Yes, ninjas were real, they did exist, and were exclusive to Japan. But their main role was being spies. There may have been some assassinating going on, but history didn't really record any of that.
That could mean that they were really good assassins that never got caught, but I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Also, they wouldn't dress like what we think of ninjas today. As spies, they dress like ordinary people, to, not stand out. One thing they did get right is the color scheme. In the West, you have stuff like cowboy movies where the good guys wear white hats and the bad guys wear black hats. In Japan, however, white is considered bad because it's the color that represents death. So having Storm Shadow be in a white outfit makes sense. Unlike most ninja movies made in America, where they had bad ninjas all in black.
Okay, that was a bit of a digression. Let's get back to the file card.
He's very fast, can endure extreme pain, and can scale walls with his bare hands and feet. He's also an expert in all weapons the figure came with, including those molded throwing stars on his torso. He's also an 8th degree black belt in 5 martial arts. The second paragraph says the great ninja clans disappeared 100 years ago. Nobody took credit for wiping them out, so if they still exist, who are they working for? Okay, so that and Storm Shadow being a part of Cobra implies they all work for Cobra now.
But the comic later pretty much contradicts that.
The file card of version 2 has to explain a lot in what little space there is because, Storm Shadow switched sides. Well, he's got a classified file name now, and his specialty is now covert operations. So I guess he gave up the whole assassin thing? This also makes him line up a little bit better with what the actual ninjas did. The card starts explaining Stormy and Snake Eyes served together in Southeast Asia, aka Vietnam, and they later both studied with Storm Shadow's family. The card then lifts a bit from the comic, saying the murder of his uncle unhinged him and led him to join Cobra to seek revenge and find the killer. He found vengeance a poor substitute for life and left Cobra, to then go live in the mountains. But Snake Eyes can call on him for the occasional special mission.
So I guess he's not really a Joe then, just a freelancer of sorts?
Also, don't think I didn't notice that subtle plug for the G.I.Joe Special Missions comic book series. The second paragraph explains what ninjas are, somewhat rectifying the assassin thing from the first card, saying they are mystic swordsmen, spies, assassins, acrobats, quick change artists, and conjurers.
Which I guess is a little more historically accurate.
The Ninja Force file card reveals a whole bunch of new information about Stormy. First and most importantly, we learn that his real name is Tommy S. Arashikage. And fun fact, Arashikage translates from Japanese as Storm Shadow. So the codename he chose is just his last name translated. That's some Ben Kenobi level of subterfuge there. And he seems to have signed up with the Joes full time now, as his rank is E8 or First Sergeant. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri. His specialties have expanded and now include being a martial arts instructor in addition to covert operations. He also has a motto now: train hard, fight easy.
The text of the card basically lists his resume.
He used to be Army Long Range Recon Patrol. That's true. A Cobra Viper. That's not true. He was the Cobra Ninja. Did they confuse him with Mercer or something? And he was sword brother to Snake Eyes.
Sure, why not?
He was also the last Grand Master of his ninja clan. Which,
No, he wasn't, or at least I don't think so.
And now he's the leader of Ninja Force, who he trains in various techniques. And in a sort of non sequitur, he's also the driver of the Patriot, which I'm sure they only added in because that thing didn't come with a driver. In the last section, the card hints at things to come, stating his uniform has special chameleon camouflage.
That brings us to the Shadow Ninja card.
And it doesn't really add anything, just saying he's got Inviso power now.
Lame.
And he has a new motto: I can fight like a ghost with the power of a ninja.
Sure, whatever.
The 1997 card just tells you his storyline from the comics, so there's no need to get into it here. The 2001 copies the first one with a little less information on it, and doesn't explain why he's Cobra again. Well, it was from the collector's edition line.
So I guess that's why?
2002 saw the full G.I.Joe vs. Cobra relaunch though, and Stormy was with Cobra again, so there needed to be an explanation.
And there was, kind of.
The card states some members of his clan joined Cobra, splitting the family in two. When his uncle was killed, he joined Cobra to find the killer, but ended up leaving Cobra not soon thereafter.
So far, so familiar.
But then the card says he's now back with Cobra, and the text asks if the whole clan is evil, or if Cobra Commander holds some special power over Stormy.
This is a vague reference to the end of the comic, but that's something we'll discuss later.
There are variations in the file cards from 2002, depending on what version of the figure the card talks about. There's one where he's in a 2-pack with Scarlet that says she's on his trail, and another one where he's in a pack with Snake Eyes that says he's angry with him. The one that came with the Red Store exclusive one is the same as the Snake Eyes one, down to the card art, which has him in his white outfit.
That's really lazy.
All file cards from 2002 have his name and birthplace removed. 2004 adds his name back in and says he sells his services to Cobra to fund his plans for revenge against Snake Eyes. Though the card does say he's a master of deception and wonders if Cobra can trust him. The other 2004 cards copy this one or the Snake Eyes one from 2002. The 2005 cards all copy the 2004 ones, except the mail-in version, which gives his birthplace as San Francisco. And that doesn't make sense because the Ninja Force card from all the way back in 1992 said he was born in Missouri. To confuse things further, the 2006 comic book pack one says he's from Fresno.
I guess they just couldn't decide where the hell he's from.
The modern body construction figures have cards that are mostly just copies of earlier ones. Which ones depends on what figure they homage, version 1 or 2 or the 2004 one. This 2008 one that came with a very Assassin's Creed looking Stormy is different, as he came with a Snake Eyes figure and an exclusive comic. The card makes reference to the comic's story.
At least that's what I think. I haven't read it.
A 2009 card puts his birthplace back at being San Francisco, and some cards point out his hatred of Snake Eyes is because of jealousy. Others say he blames Snake Eyes for the death of his uncle. The Rise of Cobra version just says he's hired by Cobra and Snake Eyes is his enemy.
Short and, well, not really sweet. More short and lazy.
The 30th anniversary one from 2011 is interesting as it gives him a new first name.
Well, sort of.
It's now Tomisaburo, which I guess Tommy could be short for. It's a real Japanese name, so that tracks. But I'm not sure how common it was for Japanese Americans to give their kids Japanese first names instead of English ones. I was gonna point to George Takei having an English first name, but then I looked it up and he was born Hosato Takei, so I just don't know. For what it's worth, later versions refer to him as Thomas or Tomisaburo, depending on the card.
And that's it for the file cards.
He started out mysterious, then more things got explained, and we got a fuller picture of the character. That's just from the original line though. The more modern cards mostly regurgitate things, are carbon copies, or confuse things like his birthplace or why he hates Snake Eyes. Whoa, this took more time than I thought. Next time we'll round things off by taking a look at him in the cartoon and the comics.
That's gonna be another big section, I can tell you that right now. Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
Main character may concludes as we take a look at Storm Shadow in other media, and we're starting with the cartoons. He made his debut in the Sunbow cartoon in the second miniseries, The Revenge of Cobra, and he's just there without an explanation, as was the style at the time. His most memorable moment in that series is him confronting his mortal enemy, the man he has great history with, Snake Eye, Spirit! Yes, of course! Spirit! Well, shamans are historically known to be great enemies to ninjas.
Okay, let's address this elephant in the room, shall we?
Yes, in the file cards, and especially in the comics, Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes' stories are deeply intertwined, as we'll see. It was the pairing in the comic written by Larry Hama.
But guess what? Larry Hama didn't write for the cartoon.
And near as I can tell, the cartoon writers didn't see much use for a mute character. So having him and Stormy be enemies would mean Storm Shadow would have to spout exposition whenever they fought. So they just went with an opponent that could talk. Spirit had the whole mysticism thing going on, so maybe that would fit with a mysterious ninja, I don't know. They do allude to having a past together, but that's never elaborated on.
Now yes, if not Snake Eyes, there is another Joe that would have made a good opponent for Stormy.
Namely Quick Kick. But that was a 1985 figure, and The Revenge of Cobra showcased 1984 and older toys. In later episodes, starting with the Pyramid of Darkness, Quick Kick did become a more frequent adversary to the ninja.
Since there wasn't a story arc or character development for Stormy in the cartoon, I can only point out some facts and trivia.
He does appear to be the most honorable Cobra and has respect for his opponents. In Cobra Quake, he appears to have his own unit of Cobra ninjas, dressed virtually identical to him. And they never show up again, so I don't know what the deal was there. Maybe they wanted to make the figure an army builder. To me, his most notable and bizarre feat is finding Excalibur.
Yes, that Excalibur, the legendary sword.
Most of his appearances are in Season 1, as he barely shows up in Season 2 and only has one scene in G.I. Joe the movie. Unfortunately for him, his defection to the Joe Team action figure came out in 1988, in between the Sunbow and Deke series, so we never saw that actually happen in animation. He did show up late in the Deke series for 2 episodes, and they mentioned he used to be a Cobra, but these appearances were just to sell Ninja Force figures. In the Rise of Cobra movie, Storm Shadow seems to be just a hired gun for Cobra, though there is a connection with Snake Eyes there too. It seemed like he died at the end of the movie, but he shows back up in G.I. Joe Retaliation, where it's revealed he was framed for killing his master and was out to find the truth and ends up switching sides. Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins is a movie that happened. I hear Storm Shadow is in it. And that's all I've got to say about that. And now it's time to talk about the character in the comics.
Oh boy, we're gonna be here a while.
He makes his debut in what's arguably the most famous issue of G.I. Joe ever, number 21, the silent issue. It's renowned for having no dialogue whatsoever in it. Storm Shadow shows up right at the beginning, as he has just kidnapped Scarlet and has brought her to Cobra Commander. Snake Eyes goes on a rescue mission, and inside the castle has his very first confrontation with Stormy. They get away, but in the last 2 panels it's revealed the ninja and Snake Eyes have the same tattoo, proving there's a link between them. Since this is the silent issue, that's all we learn about Stormy here. He next shows up in issue 23, where his role is revealed to be the commander's bodyguard. And he kinda fails at his job, since that's the issue where the Joes capture him. He rescues the commander in the next issue to make up for that, I guess, though he is captured himself. That capture leads to the Joes learning about the tattoo, and we get Snake Eyes the origin.
No, not the movie!
Where it's revealed he, Stalker, and Storm Shadow served in Vietnam together. After losing his family, Snake Eyes is invited by Stormy to join his clan and train as a ninja. Stormy does get a bit jealous of how good Snake Eyes is, and all goes to hell when their master is killed, who also happens to be Storm Shadow's uncle. And Storm Shadow ends up being framed for it, so he has to leave. They confront one another in what was then the present day, which ends with him saying he didn't kill his master, but he's after vengeance, so he has to find the real murderer. Oh, and if you're wondering how he escaped after the Joes captured him, he explains that to Cobra Commander later. During that conversation, the commander reveals he knows who killed his master/uncle, and will tell him if he protects him as a bodyguard once again.
Though given his track record, I don't think that's such a great idea.
And he does foil an assassination attempt. Kind of, as he's ready to cut down a kid who's about to shoot the commander, though both are interrupted by Destro, who reveals the kid is a brainwashed Billy, the commander's son. During Billy's mock trial, Storm Shadow is impressed by the kid's integrity and decides to break him out of prison. They get away, and this is effectively how he leaves Cobra, spending time teaching Billy the ways of the ninja. This goes on for a while, but Billy leaves to confront his past. And we all know how that turned out. Sometime later, Snake Eyes finds out who the real killer of their master was and informs Storm Shadow. It was of course Sartan, so the ninjas go hunting. they don't get him, and that's a good thing because at the time, Ripcord was dressed up as Zartan.
Don't ask why, it's a long story and involves a balloon bear.
After this debacle, they attempt to escape Cobra Island, but Storm Shadow is shot and killed by the Baroness. The end.
Okay, not really, he got better.
Mindbender takes his body and intends to use his genetic material to help create Serpentor. In issue 50, he somehow rises from the dead. He's a bit confused as he seems to have picked up memories meant for Serpentor, but that doesn't really go anywhere. His next move is to talk to Snake Eyes, which means infiltrating the pit, and kicking much ass to prove he's not dead nor an imposter. This is also the closest the comic gets to the cartoon as he fights Quick Kick for a bit. He talks to Snake Eyes, explaining he went into a deep ninja bullcrap trance sleep to survive getting shot. He does not want to live for revenge anymore and asks for help, so Snake Eyes gives him the key to his mountain cabin basement so he can,
I don't know, meditate I guess?
Sometime later, he's reunited with Billy and they, along with others, go on an unsanctioned mission to free 3 Joes from a Barovian labor camp. Well, and they also join the circus. They succeed ending the multi-issue Barovia arc. Coming back after an absence, Storm Shadow is part of the group to help the Joe team after they've been blamed for the Cobra Civil War debacle.
That's right, Stormy missed the whole Civil War.
He then shows back up in issue 84, finally wearing his version 2 outfit, even though he hasn't been with Cobra for ages. Issue 85 is the less famous silent issue where Storm Shadow and Jinx take on the Red Ninjas and Zartan to seemingly tie up the Dead Master plot when Zartan's van goes into the drink at the end.
No, of course, Zartan isn't dead, but it seemed like a good ending.
Later, in issue 91, it turns out the Red Ninjas are Storm Shadow's former clan members who blame him for the clan falling apart since he brought an outsider, Snake Eyes, in. And that's why they're the bad guys for the rest of the series. And that's kind of confusing because in issue 21, the silent issue that introduced Storm Shadow, the Red Ninjas were working with him. In issue 96, Storm Shadow attacks the Cobra Embassy to help rescue Snake Eyes, which I only mention because he kills 3 Vipers that are based on the 3 Stooges, which I find hilarious. In issue 103, he confronts the Jugglers. They're AOL generals who run things behind the scenes, and he threatens them into giving Snake Eyes a highly dangerous, near-suicide mission.
Why?
Because his love interest, Scarlet, has been shot in the head and is expected to die, which has left Snakes in somewhat of a funk. For that mission, Stormy puts him in the Arishikaze mindset, which basically turns him into an almost mindless fighting machine.
I'm not sure if that was a good idea, but what do I know?
Unfortunately, well, not really unfortunately, but for the purpose of this argument, Scarlet recovers and isn't too fond of the whole killing machine suicide mission plan, so she goes after Storm Shadow and she accidentally stabs him in the back.
No, I mean that literally.
Like a real knife in the back. But hey, the guy survived multiple shots to the chest, so this is just a scratch to him, really. It does mean he missed the Joe massacre, only showing up to help afterwards. And him and Snake Eyes get some payback on the Saw Viper that killed a whole bunch of Joes. In issue 118, the Ninja Force shows up, though he is still in his 1988 outfit here. Strangely, in the next issue, he's in his Ninja Force outfit all of a sudden, and it's never explained. At least I don't think so.
I'm skimming the books at this point. I've been doing this review for a long time now.
So Ninja Force now happens for a while, but it's not really that interesting Storm Shadow-wise. They fight and kill a whole bunch of red ninjas, so his clan must have been freaking massive the way these red shirts keep dying like, red shirts. It's also revealed that Firefly is now, and has always been, a ninja master connected to the clan.
Which is such bullcrap, I don't want to get into it now. We'll deal with it when I eventually review Firefly.
He uses the brainwave scanner to briefly control Stormy and Ninja Force, but they snap out of it pretty quickly. In issue 150, he is captured by Cobra Commander after he attempts to rescue the also captured Billy, and is put in the brainwave scanner once again to be turned into a loyal Cobra agent, along with the Baroness, Destro, and Zartan. Snake Eyes does try to rescue them, but no, this brainwashing sticks.
And yeah, that's how his story ends in the comic.
Like the others, he gets a big old reset button back to the beginning of his career with Cobra.
And that sucks!
Now, Larry Hama has stated that this was not meant to be the end for these characters, and that if the series hadn't been cancelled, they'd be unbrainwashed. But it still sucks that's the way it ended. Yeah, it was undone in future comics, even once written by Larry himself, but that didn't help in 1994. And that was Storm Shadow in the comics.
And it's quite a roller coaster ride.
From Cobra bodyguard to surrogate father to Joe Team ally, then member, then Ninja Force leader, though let's face it, that was really Snake Eyes, to being brainwashed back to square one. Ah yes, Snake Eyes, you can't talk about Bert without talking about Ernie. Their histories and fates are so intertwined, I could have made this a double feature. It's a shame Stormy didn't get to do more on his own.
Still, it was one hell of a character arc and one of the best in the comic book series.
And that was main character May, Storm Shadow. Now sure, there's things I didn't talk about, like G.I. Joe Resolute, or Renegades, or the modern comics, but half the battle has always been more about the classic stuff. In conclusion, some great action figures, especially the very first, a great comic book character, and some very well done file cards. His cartoon character isn't nearly as deep, but there's still some nuance there. Overall, I think we can all agree, Storm Shadow was great.
Now go yell at me about all the stuff I forgot to mention in the comments below. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody, and hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing.
Hey, welcome to Saturday Shorties. Today I'm gonna throw some Storm Shadow facts and trivia at you that I either forgot to put in the main episodes or that I felt didn't really fit anywhere. So let's get started. First, the original Storm Shadow mold was reused several times in the G.I. Joe toy line. The first instance was in 1992 with the mail-in Cobra Ninja Viper, whose uniform is, bluish and he's quite rare. Like the original, he looks really cool. In 2004, the mold was used to create the Red Ninja Viper, who was part of the Toys R Us exclusive Ninja Cobra Strike team. That also included the Storm Shadow, who weirdly used a version 2 mold. That same set included the Black Dragon Ninja, that also used Stormy's first mold. The version 2 mold saw only one non-Storm Shadow use in 2005 to make the Red Ninja Viper. The complete Ninja Force mold was used one more time, to create Kinzu in 1993, and the body without the head was used for the G.I. Joe Street Fighter Ken Masters figure. All that is just the American toy line though. The version 1 mold saw quite a bit of use internationally. Now, most of the time it was just the exact same figure as the US version, though he did have different code names depending on the country. For example, in Belgium and Holland he was called Bliksemschicht, which translates to lightning bolt. In France and French-speaking Belgium, the name was Tornade, meaning tornado. Now, while the names were different, they did keep the bad weather theme going. Strangely enough, the Ninja Force version didn't keep that Dutch name and was just called Storm Shadow. In Argentina, a black version was released called Ninja Coup. That explains that modern body construction version whose title is Ninja Coup Leader. It was an homage to that Argentinian figure. And I've saved the best for last, as Argentina produced one more figure using the original Storm Shadow mold, giving him a red uniform. And his name was, are you ready for this? Satan! That's right, Satan works for Cobra. Of course in the dub he's called Hercule. Yeah, I don't think this name would fly in the original American toy line. Still, I hail this figure for being a good one. And that's all the trivia I have for you today. Whether he's called Lightning Bolt, Tornado, or Satan, the figure still rocks in all color or name variations. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody, and hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing. On Saturday, June the 6th, 2026, I'm gonna be at the Retro Heaven convention in Diest, Belgium, as a special guest, alongside other YouTubers such as Pixel Dan, Ed Retro's Geek Out, and quite a few others. Yeah, me, a special guest, I can't really believe it either, but here we are. So if you're in Belgium, or in Western Europe, or are visiting, make sure you come check out Retro Heaven, Saturday, June the 6th, 2026, and come see some of your favorite YouTubers. And me too, I suppose. A link to the event is in the description below. Hope to see you there!